Good morning, everyone. I am Miss Emeline Ramos Navarez, a Master of Arts in Educational Management student enrolled in the subject Modern Approaches in Teaching, which is scheduled every 2 to 3 p.m. Sunday. So today, I will be talking about the three elements at work in the classroom. In the teaching learning process, we need to understand some concepts. They are very common, but there are some teachers that will be confused if these concepts wouldn't have a clear definition of them. In this presentation, I will be showing the definition and establish also the differences of these key concepts. The approach, the method, and the technique. So first we have the approach. So approach is a set of principles, beliefs, or ideas about the nature of learning. So learning approach is the way teachers view the learning process in which there are learning assumptions and theories which serve as the guiding principle of the teacher in carrying out her lesson. So the approach of a teacher may vary according to the following categories. So first we have the engagement. So if a teacher believes that the teacher is the sole dispenser and giver of knowledge, the focus is on the teacher, so he is an advocate of a teacher-centered approach. But on the other hand, if he believes that the students are also engaged in the teaching and learning process, that student can interact or students are given the chance to interact with the teacher during the discussions and during the lectures, then the teacher is an advocate of a student-centered approach. And according to focus, if the teacher focuses on the subject matter and the lesson content of his discussion or in his teaching and learning process, then the teacher is using the subject-centered approach. But if the teacher focuses on the interest, the needs, and the behaviors of his students, then the teacher is an advocate of a student-centered approach. And he may also use the multiple intelligences approach and the schema theory by John Piaget. So he can use those approaches if he focuses on the needs and interest of his students. So next, if the teacher teaches the student in groups, small groups or big groups, then he is an advocate of a group-centered approach. But if the teacher teaches his students individually, then he is an advocate of an individual teaching approach. So those are the various approaches that a teacher may use in his or her day-to-day lesson. Okay, next is the method. So method, this is the application of the approach. So these are a systematic way in which activity is conducted in the classroom. A teacher may use various methods in the classroom. So first we have the lecture method. Lecture method is the commonly used method in a teacher-centered approach. So in the lecture method, the teacher is the sole source of information and the students are passive listeners to the teacher. So there is less or no engagement of the students that will take place in the lecture method. Next is the demonstration method. So it is a teaching method used to communicate with the aid of visuals such as flip charts, graphic organizers, posters, PowerPoints, and videos. So in the demonstration method, it will demonstrate the process of teaching someone how to make or do something. So that will be done in the demonstration method. Next is the project method. So in the project method, this is a student-centered. So this is an example of the method that will be used in a student-centered approach. So students have the control over the planning, the refining, the presenting, and reflecting of the project. So through the project method, the teacher will develop the students' innovation and creativity. Okay, so next we have the problem solving method. So in the problem solving method, students learn by working on problems. So this enables the students to learn new knowledge by facing different sets of problems to be solved. So students are expected to observe, understand, analyze, and interpret data in order to find solutions and perform applications that leads to the holistic understanding of the concept. So that is about the problem solving method. And problem solving method can be used in a student-centered approach or in a constructivist approach. Next we have is the cooperative learning method. Okay, this method also is used in a constructivist approach wherein small teams are being created, each with students of different levels of ability, and the teacher will use a variety of learning activities to improve the understanding of his students about the subject. So each member of the team is responsible not only for learning what is taught, but also for helping his or her teammates to learn. Thus, in that way, we can create an atmosphere of achievement. So in cooperative learning, each of the members of the group will not just be focusing on themselves, but also on the learning of each of the individuals in their group. So teamwork is one of the focus on this method. So those are the methods that a teacher could use in his or her classroom in actualizing the approach that he chose. Okay? And the third one is the technique. So a technique are the tools we use to realize a method. So these are the specific activities manifested in the classroom. So technique means a way of how we do a particular task, for example, how we teach or the way we teach. So it is very specific and concrete set of activities we designed to meet our immediate objective. So this technique must be consistent with our method and therefore in harmony with our chosen approach. So there are several techniques that a teacher may use in the classroom. So first we have the role playing. So in a role playing, students are given the chance to immediately apply the content that they have learned. So they are grouped and given a specific role to portray. So in this technique, students are engaged and allowed to interact with their peers as they try to complete the task assigned to them in their specific role. Another is group reporting. So students are given topics or issues that they are going to report in the classroom. So each members of the group are assigned tasks to accomplish. So say for example, each group will have to search about a certain topic, the other is about a certain topic, and then they have to collaborate with each other in order to come up with a conclusion which will they report in the classroom. Okay, next is all about think, pair, and share. So in this technique, students are given an issue or a topic in which they have to form a pair, or they need to find a partner wherein they will discuss this certain issue or topic with each other and then share it later on in the class. Next, we have journal writing. So in this technique, students are given a chance to write their insights or um, their the knowledge that they have get through the lessons presented by the teacher. So this is more on a reflection and reaction of the students about a certain topic. Next is the use of technology in the classroom. So nowadays, students are more on digitalizing the teaching and learning environment. So we as a teacher must adapt to the changing world. So, di ba? So nowadays, students are equipped with the gadgets. So why not use these gadgets in optimizing their learning? So we can use the technology in the classroom. So we can use PowerPoint presentations, we can use projectors, and even we can use ebooks. So they can download the materials using their cell phones and view the materials whenever they are and wherever they are, because ebooks now in their cell phones are more handy rather than bringing with them a book of books. So we can use or we can utilize the technology in our classroom so that we can have an optimum learning in our students. So those are the techniques that a teacher can use in his classroom. So those are the differences of the key concepts in teaching. Now let us summarize the examples that I have mentioned a while ago. So say for example, there is a lesson about the elements of visual arts. And if you are an advocate or a teacher who believes that students must learn and construct their knowledge from their experiences, you will be using a constructivist approach. And since you use a constructivist approach, of course, you will be using a method which will you think be appropriate to use in your chosen approach. So you will be using a project method. And then in implementing the project method, you will use technologies such as PowerPoint presentations or even video presentations. So those are the examples of an approach, method, and technique that can be used in the classroom. Now, let us compare traditional teaching and constructivism. Let us find out what are their differences. In the traditional teaching approach, the main focus is on the teacher. So it is a teacher-centered. The teacher is the sole dispenser of knowledge, and the students are just passive listeners. So there is less or no interaction between the teacher and the students. And in this approach, the students are encouraged to do memorization. So there is no involvement of a higher order thinking skills. And assessment is through testing and correct answers. So the only way of assessing how far the students have learned are through testing, pen and paper test, and correct answer. So there is no like project-based method or based on performance-based assessments. So the only assessment made is through testing. Another is student work alone. So there is no collaboration or teamwork between students and between teachers and students. So students are entitled to work on their own. So those are the characteristics of a traditional teaching. On the other hand, constructivism focuses on the learners or on the students. So it makes it student-centered. It focuses on the needs and interest of the students. And in constructivism, students or learners are now active rather than passive. So they are now engaged in the teaching and learning process. So learners now have the chance to participate, to ask questions, rather than just merely listening to the discussion of the teacher. And learning in constructivism is interactive. Yes, there is an interaction between the student and the teacher, and there is also an interaction between the student and the co-student. And in constructivism, teachers don't use only one assessment scheme. So assessments here are in a form of like a project or a performance assessment or even portfolios or journals in which teachers can assess in many ways on how far the students have learned. And in constructivism, students work in groups. So students learn best when they or with teams or with peers. So in that way, students will share to each other their learnings, their experiences. In that way, they will learn best. So those are the characteristics in a constructivist teaching. And in the constructivist teaching, learners will not find it dull. Learners will not find the teaching and learning process boring because they are actively engaged in the process of learning. There are approaches which are anchored on constructivism. One of these is the schema theory proposed by John Piaget. Schema is described as organized pattern of thoughts or behavior. It can also be described as mental structure of preconceived ideas. So schema influences the attention and absorption of new knowledge. People are more likely to notice things that fit to their schema, while reconsidering or reinterpreting the contradictions to the schema as exception or distorting to fit them into the new one. Next is the Multiple Intelligences by Howard Gardner. So this posits that individuals are endowed with various intelligences. Among those are musical, linguistics, spatial, logical, mathematical, kinestetics, interpersonal, naturalistic and existential. So in this way, a teacher must, if the teacher is observing this multiple intelligences theory in his teaching and learning process, therefore he must use a differentiated instruction to cater all these differences among individuals. Next is the whole language approach. So words must be recognized by children as a whole. Language should not be broken down into letters and combination of the letters and decoded. Whole language is an approach towards learning that sees language as a whole entity, not a single entity, but a whole entity. And writing, speaking, and reading and listening should be integrated when learned. So in this whole language approach, we should not um, interpret like Visayan word to English word by word, because what will happen is that there will be a misinterpretation of the message. So that is why we must decode the language in a holistic way. So thank you, and that's it for today. Let us just be reminded that there is no single best approach, method, or technique that applies to all. So it depends upon the type of learners that we have. It depends on the nature of the subject that we teach, and it depends also on our beliefs and philosophy as a teacher. We just have to bear in mind that whatever the goal or objective of our lesson is, we need to ensure that this will be accomplished. So it's just like we have one destination, but there could be different roads that we can go as long as we will reach into that destination. Thank you so much and good day.